Well, there's your problem. So what we're looking at here is a Pentair Globrite LED pool light. These are designed to install into an 1.5" PVC adapter in your pool. They're considered nicheless, and they run on 12 volts AC. You can see that this particular model has a dated manufacture of November of 2020, I believe. Yeah, down there at the bottom of the label. And this one has suffered a fairly substantial crack in the housing back here by the gasket. You can see right there, fairly lengthy crack. And once water gets in here, well, needless to say, these are on borrowed time. In fact, you can see on this printed circuit board under the diffuser, not only some discoloration, some rust in the legs of that power regulation integrated circuit. And you can kind of pick up there too the surface mounted diodes themselves. But once water gets in there, especially salt water in our case, they're not going to last very long. They don't necessarily go completely dark at first. In our case, we had a couple of models, or a couple of these, that were stuck in a show or color. We were unable to change the colors until finally they just completely outright fail. And retail price somewhere north of $400, depending on the length of cord that you need. And then professional installation on top of that, another $300 to $400. You're looking at easily $800 per light for replacement. I've got to say, I think there's probably a better way. Let's talk about it. So here's a solution that many pool owners have come across. I decided to go ahead and take the chance at one of these. This is from Waking, and you order these from the manufacturer in China. And you can see here, packaged pretty well. I had a stack of these. This is the last one remaining that still requires installation. Very similar look to the Pentair. In the packaging, not only do you get the instruction manual, you also get the tool, which you use to give it basically a 1/8 of a turn to cinch it down. Well, let's talk about installing this. So other than, of course, the replacement LED light, it's really not a lot that you need. I've got a cordless drill here with a Phillips bit, wire strippers, non-contact voltage tester, some electrical tape, and then I like this pulling line by Klein Tools. You could certainly use some of the wider nylon cord. So I'm here at my pool panel, and as with any electrical project, we're going to make sure we turn off the power. In this case, we have a 20-amp breaker. That runs to the transformer, which is contained behind this cover. And so that steps the 120 volts AC down to the 12 volts AC that the lights use. And then via that conduit, that runs over here to the Intermatic junction box for pool lights. And I'll bet you've got one just like this. So a couple of Phillips screws, and this housing lifts off. Pro tip, make sure to be careful with those screws. You really don't want them to fall down into your conduit. Inside of the junction box itself, I'll bet you mine looks a little bit different. I was a slow adopter as far as these Wagos, these lever nuts. But boy, in an application like this, I think this is a huge improvement over conventional wire nut. So I can just flip that little lever when I'm replacing a light, and it's just a bit cleaner in here as well. So I've got the wires disconnected from the Wagos, and that cable right there is for my mid-pool light. That's the one that needs to be replaced. And you can see it's still secured by this strain relief cable clamp. So we need to remove those Phillips head screws down there. And this is where we need to be very careful not to lose those down into the openings for the conduits, because that would be a very difficult prospect to try to retrieve those. And while we are talking about the strain relief cable clamps, that's what they look like when they're installed. Again, the 2 Phillips screws. And that securely holds the cable here in the junction box. I've got that one removed. That runs out to my mid pool light. So right now the cable is just hanging freely here above the opening. I've seen some confusion on the internet on various YouTube videos as to how these get installed, and there is a rhyme and a reason. It's got a little arrow embossed on the plastic itself, and on Intermatic's website it says that if you have a cable diameter of less than 1/2 inch, the arrow should be oriented downward like that. Greater than 1/2 inch, arrow gets mounted upward. Well, I did a little measurement on those Waking pool light cables, and the diameter came in just a little bit shy of 1/2 inch. But I discovered that arrow pointing upward seemed to offer the best grab. All right, so I've got my pull line securely attached to not only the jacket of the cable, but I've also got it wrapped around the individual conductors, and kind of like those finger cuffs you played with as a kid. We're not going to put a ton of tension on this, but we do want it to remain intact as we pull it through the conduit. And although they used, I'm sure, some nice sweeping elbows to ease in pulling, you definitely want to make sure this is secure. So I've got some electrical tape wrapped around there a couple of times. I got a couple of knots. I don't want that to be too thick of an assembly because that'll hinder pulling as well. But when I'm very confident about how secure that is, I think it's time to hop into the pool. All right, so in the pool, here next to my light, you can see I got it started. I was kind of curious as to see what the date code would be on this one. So this is one of the newer lights, although this shows May 23rd, 2024, and I think the revision that Pentair put out started on production in November of that year. The tool that came with the Waking light doesn't exactly key into these notches around the perimeter of the diffuser, so I just used some needle nose pliers to index here into a couple of these notches and just give it a very slight turn. It's really only about 1/8 of an inch, and once you do that, you'll see it kind of pop free of the housing. And once that's started, you can start pulling your cable. Really quickly though, this is an opportunity to show you that kind of what I was talking about. So this is the tool that comes with the Waking light. I don't have any of the Pentair tools. They didn't leave those with the house when we purchased it. I'm suspecting the pool contractor didn't leave them any. And you can see that it just doesn't quite grab these notches. But this will work to give it that last little turn when we install the new light. So with the pliers, you can just sort of stick them in there, one notch, the other, give yourself a little bit of leverage, and you can free it up from that PVC adapter. Really nice. All right, well, after some pulling, not too much, this is what I have. So pull cord made it here, and my knot wrap stayed intact. So you've gotten to this point. Now it's time to cut my wrap here, and we're going to attach this to the new cable. All right, got the new cable. I've got the cord properly secured around it. And again, the cord's really doing the work. The tape is just there as a, keep it attached as a backup. But the tension's being applied via these tight wraps around the jacketing of the cable itself. And before you go pulling, make sure to give that a nice test, because again, you don't want this to come loose in the conduit as you're pulling. All right, so you just pull. Hopefully not too much tension required. This is where two people can make the process go a little bit quicker, because someone can be feeding cable in on the pool side while somebody provides tension over here. All right, bit of a time warp. I had to do the kid taxi thing, but that's complete. The pull is complete. I did cheat a little bit. I used some pulling lubricant. You can see some of the foam residue there. Klein makes it. A couple of others. Sprayed that down in the opening of the conduit. Pulled some of the cable back into the pool, and then proceeded to pull from here again with the pull cord, and that went a lot easier. I should have done that from the get-go. So now I've got the cable secured with cable clamp right there. Nice, not going anywhere. It's time to strip that back and get it attached to these lever nuts. All right, jacketing stripped back. I've got the hot and the neutral conductors connected to the Wagos. I'll get this junction box lid put back on. We'll get the breaker thrown, and then as it gets dark here, we'll see what it looks like. And the final result. So these look really good. In case you're wondering, they do synchronize fully with the Pentair and Globrite controls. You get all the shows, all the colors. Looks great. And they look good. Great illumination, very clean light. Extremely happy with these. And for me, 4 lights, truly, for the price of one Pentair Globrite.